Minnesota Twins drop game one in the Bay to the Giants 7-1. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back in the lab, back at it, another Minnesota Twins POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man. He's back. Theo Tollefson, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN and Twins Daily. He's on X at Theodore Tollef1. Theo, before we jump into all the action from tonight, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, this is all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, man. Twins final series before they head to the All-Star break on the West Coast in the Bay, taking on the sub-500 Giants. Joe Ryan on the mound. Got dinged around a little bit tonight. 5 1/3, 6 hits, 5 earned, 3 walks, 6 Ks. Twins didn't score until the 6th inning. Willi Castro hit into a fielder's choice. That got an RBI. That scored Correa. Strawmount gives up 2 more in the 7th and 8th. All of a sudden, you look up, Twins are down 7-1. And that was pretty much all she wrote, man. We'll get into the nuts and bolts, but kind of a boring game, if we're being totally honest. Twins dropped to 53-41 on the year. That's 12 games above 500. Currently 4.5 games back from Cleveland now, who lost tonight to Tampa 2-0. Theo, biggest takeaways, 8 topics, and then we'll talk about Joe Ryan's night here in a second.
The biggest takeaway is they left too many guys on base, which was a total of 10. I mean, the Giants left on 7, but they had opportunities and they couldn't cash in, and that's the biggest takeaway. And, we've seen multiple games like this. I mean, there's always games like this every year, but they still sting nonetheless when they happen because you just have that optimism. You got runners on second and third, X amount of outs, no matter what, base hit, a sacrifice fly can get someone in. And none of that came through tonight, unfortunately.
Dude, Bomba Squad 2.0. I totally jinxed it. I'll take the blame for that one. You weren't there on Thursday, but we talked a lot about this. Is Bomba Squad 2.0. No home runs tonight, so the streak is officially snapped. I believe it was at 27 games. Correct me if I'm wrong.
28.
28 games, longest streak in baseball this year. I think by a mile. Longest streak.
Second.
I think
go ahead.
Yeah.
Second of all time behind the 2019 Yankees, who got to 31 or 32.
There it is. Okay.
So, I mean, still impressive nonetheless. Sucks it ended how it did, but this has never been a hitters-friendly ballpark. I mean, why did the Giants win so many World Series every other year at the beginning of last decade? They're pitching mainly. And, being back to ball, contact hitters, being streaky like that. Now, I wouldn't entirely describe this team as Bomba Squad 2.0 because they are definitely hitting the ball more selectively. Nothing's entirely a home run every time it's made contact. I mean, we saw it with Jose Miranda's streak of going 12 for 12. I mean, I don't think he had a single home run in that streak, which is just telling of how different his team's identity was compared to what it was 5 years ago. So that's a huge thing to take away from all of this. But going back to today's game, I mean, that's the thing. They had their cold streak. It's an entirely new environment for the majority of these players. I believe Vasquez and Correa are the only 2 guys in the lineup who really had hit there beforehand. Actually, Buxton too, back in 2017 during the Twins' last visit to AT&T Park or Oracle Park. What are they called these days?
Nobody knows anymore. And as soon as you memorize it, they'll change it next
It's something new. And the only one I'll die on the hill of is Miller Park. You can't tell me it's anything else because that's Milwaukee.
True. That's Milwaukee.
Anyway, that's going off on a little tangent we don't have time for.
No, I'm glad you brought up the fact that, yes, the streak was snapped in San Francisco because Lou kind of primed us. He teased that a little bit. He's like, hey, don't be surprised if it ends up snapping at some point. Hopefully not game 1, but nonetheless, he did remind us that it is not a home run friendly ballpark, to your point. Well, but what does a streak like that say about this Twins lineup? I mean, you kind of touched on a little bit. It isn't the Bomba squad that we got used to a few years ago. That was all or nothing, right? Either hot or cold. So many strikeouts to go along with all the home runs. But like, what does a streak like that say about this lineup the last month and change and everything they've been able to accomplish?
I mean, it's so different from what it was last season. It's so different than it was at the beginning of this season. We are literally seeing a team here that's just coming together and everything's clicking, and you're still got a lot of great winning streaks, winning 2 out of 3 consecutive series in a row. I mean, they still have a chance to get their 7th consecutive series won in a row, even though they dropped the opener, which makes it a little bit harder, but that possibility is still there. So that's what you want from this team, is like stability within the starting rotation, which you're getting a lot more from Bailey Ober right now. Paddock was okay on Monday. It wasn't fantastic, but coming off the IL, you're second Tommy John. Sometimes 5 innings, only giving up a couple of runs is all you can ask for, and then tip your cap to that.
Yeah. You'll take that. You'll take that for sure. I want to ask you about this rotation and the bullpen here in a second, but you got any memory or any home run, I guess, you'll remember the most during that streak? Honestly, mine might be Byron Buxton's like moonshot. It was to deep center. It's probably right in the middle of this streak. It was probably like game 14, but it was like 468 feet, I want to say. You never know with Buxton, man. Like, you forget sometimes he's got sneaky power to the third deck every once in a while. He'll surprise you.
Honestly, I think it was Correa's grand slam last Friday.
Oh, that was great.
The ending of that game, it's just...
That might have been, even though, despite, it was a loss, might have been the most entertaining Twins game we've got so far this year.
And that's the thing. I think, despite, the Astros definitely being on their decline compared to where they were with Correa part of the franchise, or even where they were in 2022, I think, just the battle back and forth between one of the quote unquote bad guys of the American League and just going against them, battle back and forth, just very competitive baseball to the last moment, and having that moment against his former team. I think, the outcome was not what we wanted, but that's a memorable moment of like, okay, this is why this guy is being paid the most. This is why he's one of the team leaders in this clubhouse, when he's one of the most respected people within the organization, and why it's a good part we have him here, because that impact that he has both as a player on the field, but also a person in the clubhouse, it rubs off on Jose Miranda, because they are Puerto Rican brothers, and the relationship they share, not only from where their heritage comes from, but how they are interacting within this clubhouse, it rubs off on him, and he can get 12 straight hits and 12 straight at bats. So, I mean, I can go on a tangent here, but we only have so much time.
We better talk Joe Ryan's day just real quick, right? 5 1/3, 6 hits, 5 earned, 3 walks, 6 Ks, 98 pitches. Almost more than the 5 earned. It was the 3 walks that just kind of stuck out to me when you just look at the box score tomorrow morning. But you tell me, what'd you see from him tonight, I guess? And what kind of grade would you give him tonight?
Well, I think it's a C, to be fair. Obviously with some of us still having these limitations to how we're accessing these games, listen to tonight's game on the radio, and in the pregame show, Sean Aronson, who's filling in for Chris Atterbury, which is a huge promotion, great opportunity for Sean. Shameless plug, go read my story at Twins Daily about how that happened behind the scenes.
Yes.
But one thing him and Rocco talk about was, performing in front of family members when you're in that hometown ballpark. And this was that for Joe Ryan. And Rocco touched on briefly, his one season with the Boston Red Sox back in 2009. Him being from Rhode Island, obviously Fenway Park is going to be the closest ballpark to anyone in that New England Northeast territory. So I think what Rocco put emphasis on is like, there's definitely some pressure that's added, whether you realize it or not, when you're performing in front of your hometown crowd. And, there are things that overlook it, especially if you are not playing for your hometown team. And we have had the privilege of seeing a lot of guys do that as Twins fan. Mauer, Perkins, Herbeck, the list goes on and on. But I think some of that wore off on Ryan a little bit, and that's why we saw these results now. I think he probably should have just been done after the 5th inning and just kept it there just so he can walk away with a little better composure. But it is what it is. But the control wasn't there. Hits were being landed for what they were. And again, this ballpark is one of the more unique ones you're going to ever pitch in, and it is much more pitcher friendly. But when it's a complete unknown when it's your first time out there. You just don't know what to expect. And as a visiting pitcher, there are a lot more challenges to face versus being a Giants pitcher out up there, because you have plenty more opportunities to work the confines of Oracle Park to your advantage as a pitcher. And unfortunately, when you're a visiting pitcher for an American League team, you're going to only have that maybe once every 2 years or longer.
A lot of good points right there. Good breakdown. Perfect segue, and you kind of already touched on this, but what do you think is like the temperature of this rotation right now? Because the bats, I mean, we just talked about this 28 game home run streak. The bats really took over and kind of kept things afloat. They rallied. They carried things the last 2.5, 3 weeks or so, and really it felt like a lot of pressure off all these guys. But then, Pablo was just kind of okay again versus the White Sox on Thursday in that doubleheader. Bailey Ober was solid like he usually is. You mentioned Paddock coming back. He looked decent enough. But just as a whole, I guess, like statistically even, where do these guys rank, the starters, in the MLB in some of the more important categories, I guess?
Well,
like,
overall,
is this like a top 10? Explain it to me like I'm 5. Is this a top 10 starting rotation? Is it a bottom third starting rotation? If you had to guess.
If I had to like explain it off the top of my head, like to one of my friends who's more of a casual fan that comes to me for the advice, I would say they're in that 10 to 15 range where when they're good, when everything's going right, like, when they were in Oakland, Bailey Ober, complete game, Pablo, 8 shutout innings. I'm like, this is a team that's borderline. They're going to be that number 10, number 11. But right now they're more 13, 14, 15. And that's because, Pablo's last start on Wednesday in game 2 of the doubleheader. This is the easiest opponent you're going to face within your division. And you still have these struggles. It's just, it's hard to not to get past that, because the White Sox, we have it clicked in our heads now with how bad of a season they are. Everyone should be going out there for 6 innings,
right?
Having a quality start.
Yeah.
But that's not always going to be the case. And then giving up 2 home runs to Martin Maldonado, of all people, in these series. Yeah. I mean,
not much you can really, not a lot of words. For
not
a
lot of words I can put on here.
Not great, Bob. So is it really just like Pablo turning back to 2023 Pablo, and that all of a sudden would just make everything go from night to day and feel so much better? Because then that obviously takes so much pressure off everyone behind him. Or is there a lot more to it? Is it a lot more complex than that?
It's a lot more complex than that, because things never happen the same way twice. And I think there's this expectation that, somehow magically Pablo's going to be back to who he was last season. And, fortunately, the Twins having one of the longer breaks, along with the Brewers, having 5 days and not 4 days off with this All-Star break, I think that will be a lot more beneficial to the starting pitchers, especially. Obviously, having an extra day off can have its wear, especially on hitters like the Twins when they're going on this roll that they have for the last month and a half. It could definitely not be a good hot streak out of the break, but hopefully in return, we see a lot more benefits for Pablo Lopez, maybe Chris Paddock too, and obviously tomorrow's starter, Simeon Woods Richardson. We'll get some more later about him.
Where does the bullpen kind of fit into this whole equation? Because they were, big overachievers for the most part, like that, first month or 2 of the season. Where do they rank, I guess, if you had to place them among the rest of the league as well?
No, I would certainly put them in the top 10. Obviously, we've had some issues from everyone at some point during the season, but, tonight Caleb Thielberg got out there, did a pretty impressive job, even though, he allowed a hit, a walk, he still got out of it. No runs earned to him. He went unscathed. Josh Stallmount had his first 2 earned runs of the season tonight. It was bound to happen at some point. It's possible to have 0 ERA. Even Mariano Rivera couldn't do that. But, he still has been impressive. I mean, since we last got on here together, he's thrown 101 miles per hour, which I'm sure you touched about on the postcast for that game, which, I mean, with what he went through injury-wise is very impressive to be topping over 100 miles per hour. So I think, obviously, the old adage in baseball is you can never have too many pitchers, and another reliever, another starter are definitely at the needs of what the Twins are going to need to get at this trade deadline as it quickly approaches. But I think even if they have a cold week coming out of the All-Star break, they don't have any need to get any new bats in this lineup. I think that is their best strength with who they have, that if they don't make any moves to add or subtract anyone who's currently in this lineup or on the 40-man, they're going to be just fine.
That was the perfect explanation and deep dive breakdown I needed just to organize everything in my head and just kind of place where this Twins team is at, not just as a whole, but just individual wise, right? Like groupings, starting pitchers, relief guys, the lineup, the bats, the scoring, the offense, all that stuff. And especially compared to the rest of the league as well. So that was great. Rocco report time. I know you didn't watch it, but favorite or least favorite move or decision from today's game. So game 1 versus San Francisco, the Rocco report. It says what?
Well, I know everyone was freaking out with Christian Vasquez being the DH in the lineup. Yeah. Well, granted, they are 3 catchers there now. Jair Camargo got called up with Kyle Farmer being placed on the IL earlier today. Now Camargo's probably only back up for the series, and they'll probably make a corresponding move to replace him once they return from the All-Star break. But, I mean, when you got 3 catchers, why are you going to complain about 2 of them being in the lineup when you're facing a lefty and you want an all-righty lineup, which is what they went for until Miranda had to get scratched with some back issues. But, pinching Trevor Larnach later in the game, he went 2 for 2. He did his part. He carried his load, replacing Vasquez, and that is something you can take away as a positive where, once you take out the starter and those relievers come in and you can platoon better to how the bullpen's going to be. Obviously, there are all going to be more righties than lefties in the majority of Major League bullpens, and that's what he did. And, Larnach didn't do a lot, but he still did enough. I mean, he got on base each time he showed up, so there is that to consider.
Love it. All right, plenty more deep dive from this one, plus our nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. They got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back with all the parts you need at the prices you want. Easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Okay, 2 games away from the All-Star break. So give me a couple first half awards for the Twins. Correa, unanimous MVP. We know that. Joe Ryan, Cy Young. Maybe you could make a case for Simeon Woods even. Maybe you'd get a vote or 2, I guess. But
I would put Griffin Jacks ahead of Simeon Woods.
Okay.
And it's no disrespect to SWR.
No, I like that.
But, I mean, he's been the stabilizing force within the bullpen that, with Duran having his struggles. And he's building himself back up. The velocity isn't there, but he's becoming that stabilized reliever. Fans have known him for the last 2 years. But in terms of, making sure things are good while Duran's been working on his things, Caleb Thielbar, we can keep going with relievers having their struggles. Jax has been consistent all season, so I would say he's the runner-up to Joe Ryan, and then Simeon Woods, Richard third.
1, 2, 3. Bang. I love it. MVP runner-up. I know Willi Castro.
We have to talk about it because we haven't had the show since he's been named an All-Star.
Yeah.
I think, it's been consistently said that, by Rocco Baldelli with Willi Castro, he makes everything possible where you can put the rest of your lineup together. And wherever you have that hole, Willi Castro is going to show up, and he's going to be there. He's played in every single game so far this season. Knocking on wood. Let's hope he can do the next 2. So going into the All-Star break, and hopefully we can have a Twin that plays all 162 this season. I'm really hoping for that because I think we're too precautious with that stat these days, and we need to see more guys doing that. I
was going to ask you because I grew up in the Cal Ripken era, right? I saw the Iron Man, but that's just not how baseball is played nowadays. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
No, and the last guy who even came remotely close to what Cal Ripken Jr. did was Miguel Tejada.
Oh, Tejada.
Miguel Tejada was very consistent in the 2000s. I can't remember. I think he had, somewhere between 700 and 1,000 games.
Yes, you're right.
Consecutively played. I can't remember how many off the top of my head. I'm just throwing that ballpark number out there. But we haven't seen someone since Miguel Tejada. I know Freddie Freeman's been pretty close to that. He's only missed, let's see here, the last 3 full seasons. He played all 60 games for the Braves in 2020, and then he missed 2 games, both in 2020, actually 3 games in 21 and 22, and then missed only 1 game with the Dodgers last year. So Freddie Freeman's like the closest example we have to that in terms of being consistent, showing up every day and producing pretty, and all-star caliber numbers, something that's definitely going to win him a Silver Slugger if he wasn't a first baseman, because that's one of the hardest positions to win one with so much offensive numbers that are going off the charts from that position. So yeah, I mean, Willi Castro is easily the runner-up to Carlos Correa, and I think there's been a lot of positive feedback from both of those players, complimenting one another on what they've been able to do within that clubhouse this entire season. So we got to recognize what Willi Castro's done. This could be his only all-star game. So let's just cherish this moment and hope he can really just embrace it for himself and really enjoy, from going from a free agent minor league signing, because the Tigers didn't want to pay him $2 million in arbitration, and taking that into who he now is just it's
a feel good story, man. And again, so glad that not only he's get a little bit more spotlight and love during All-Star Week, but he's so deserving. And I feel like most Minnesota Twins fans know how much, I should say, are grateful for him as much as we should be. Like, he's not flying under the radar anymore like he was. No. Let's just put it that way, right?
No, a year ago this time, you could still possibly make that argument, but now not anymore.
Right, fair enough. What else is noteworthy? Because we're not going to talk to you during the next 2 nights. I think we got Lou on the next 2 postcasts. So, what else is noteworthy in your eyes about this year's All-Star Week that maybe we should be looking for? Like, I saw the Phillies, for example, lead the way with 7 players getting voted in, which that's 7 players. That feels pretty wild to me. I don't know if that's happens every year or what, but what else intrigues you, whether it's the game itself, the home run derby, whatever it may be?
Correct you there. They got 3 players who are starting: Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, and Bryce Harper. So they had the majority of infielders for the National League, but the rest of them were selected in that reserves announcement. I mean, that's normal. I mean, the best team, the team with the best record is probably going to have 6 or 7 guys. My rant about the All-Star game is voting has been rigged with being online only, and that's taken away opportunities for a new generation of kids who haven't been able to vote by paper ballot like I was able to.
Right.
Whether it was at the Metrodome or Target Field, they just don't have those opportunities anymore, and it really disappoints me. And I hope Major League Baseball will correct that error, but I don't hold my breath for that.
Dude, there was something so special about going to a game as a kid and getting that paper pamphlet and sitting there poking all those holes out, man, one by one.
So I know I annoyed my parents with this because they didn't care how many you took home with you. I took home a ton, and if you remember those little paper holes you would leave in them, and all over the floor, those little circles, and my mom and dad were like, "You better be vacuuming them up once you're done with filling them up." I'm like, "I will."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They always knew where Theo was in the house because there'd be just a little trail of not Reese's Pieces. Nope. There's just these little, punch
fill-ins for my All-Star ballots. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Nerdy stat of the day. You got any crazy stat or fun analytic Twins related?
Well, Joe Ryan's officially gotten over the hump of 500 career strikeouts. He's become the 41st person in a Twins Senators uniform to get over 500 career strikeouts with this franchise. The next guy for him to get will be, 2 guys he's got to get past, which he easily will in his next start. Dean Chance, the 1967 Major League Cy Young Award winner when he was with the California Angels, and Glenn Perkins, who are both tied for 504 strikeouts. He's just got to get 3 more to get past them, and then he moves up the list into the top 40 all time in the Twin Senators franchise. So
I feel like that happened quick all of a sudden, but he has been doing it for a while, I guess. Yeah.
All I'll say is, aside from Barrios, we really haven't had a strikeout-heavy guy for 4 or 5 consistent seasons since Johan Santana. So
no, you're right.
It feels bizarre, but
it lines up. It is about right
when you really think about it.
When you really think about it. All right, don't go anywhere. We got to preview Game 2 versus the G-Men tomorrow. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. And for me and my money, it's by far the easiest and most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and you watch your favorite players. All you got to do, so simple. You pick more or you pick less on 2 or more player stats, and you watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season, obviously in full swing. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Plus, they now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code, this is all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, game 2 tomorrow. Woods Richardson on the mound for that one. I want to say that's his 15th start of the year, maybe 16th. But what are you looking forward to in that matchup that's noteworthy that we should jot down, keep in the back of our mind, versus a team that, again, we just really don't get to see this team that often?
Well, 16th start of the season for Woods Richardson. I think it's fair to say he's currently the leader as the Twins Rookie of the Year. We don't know what we'll see from Brooks Lee or him in the second half, and I think it will come down to what we see from them, who that could land to. But as of right now, he's the clear front runner in that. So looking at the Twins all-time franchise record, obviously the teams have been much different over the years in their times playing in San Francisco. But after tonight's loss, they're 5-8 all-time in San Francisco. Not great, but aside from 2014, where they got swept in all 3 games they played out there, they've at least won one game each series. So I think there's definitely a good turnaround. Woods Richardson is still a rookie, completely foreign to a lot of these Giants hitters, veterans, and rookies alike. So he has that advantage versus last season where, Joe Ryan, I can't remember if he made a start against San Francisco when they came here last May. But, there's familiarity. There's a lot more accessibility with, data technology, him making more frequent major league starts. They're going to get that information on Joe Ryan, and they had that today. With Richardson, he's got that advantage of them not having as much accessibility to him. So I think that's the thing to look for. Obviously, hopefully the Twins bats show up a little more frequently tomorrow. Don't leave as many guys on base.
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't count on a new home run streak starting here in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope they do that when they're back at Target Field next weekend. So
that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
It would be great, but I wouldn't hold my breath for a year.
Don't hold your breath. Last one before we get out of here. MLB draft coming up on Sunday. Twins have the 21st and 33rd pick. I'm an NFL draft just nut, total nerd. Give me something. I know they're not picking in the top 10, top 5. I know it's not like an elite class with a bunch of blue chips like last year, but just give me something noteworthy I can remember for Sunday. I can look forward to, maybe the Twins' biggest need, maybe a name or two you've seen or heard kind of linked to the Twins specifically, whatever it may be.
Yeah, first, another shameless plug. The other podcast I work with, Destination the Show, affiliated with Twins Daily, Jeremy Cameron, Jeremy Nygaard. We're doing a live stream on YouTube starting at 6 p.m. on our channel, Destination the Show. So we're going to be covering everything Twins, Brewers, Cubs.
Love it.
For that draft. But, obviously, as you mentioned, it's not a deep class. It's not, the same spectacular top 5 guys like you had last year. They're not moving
last
up
year was so fun, man. Knowing the Twins snuck into the top 5 and that was a top 5 class kind of thing. So they were
I think
a guy in that top tier.
And that story, with Mike Radcliffe, may he rest in peace, Twins former scout who died back in February of 2023, one of the last guys he scouted that would have been a perfect fit for this organization. They got him in Walker Jenkins.
Yes.
I think there's a lot that went right for them this year. Obviously, picking 21 overall, anyone could land there, and
it's so tough to predict. Yeah.
The guy who's there right now is from the University of Iowa, Hawkeye, Brody Birch. He's like the most likely to be their pick, a right-handed pitcher, 21 years old, pretty hard-throwing guy. I think that's the best name I could put out there. Again, Jeremy and Jamie are the experts in this, and I just make sure they don't sound like crap while we got the show running. So, but I've definitely learned a lot more when it comes to the draft, and I think a lot of that's going to show for all of us once we do the stream on Sunday. But it's a lot more unpredictable compared to the NFL draft.
I was going to say NFL draft is, one thing that's its own other beat. MLB draft, dude, is on like another
It's sporadic.
It's like if you've ever played like fantasy baseball for the first time in like a decade and you come in and you're like, whoa, dude, my head is spinning.
Who are these guys?
It's tough.
I know. You might know your first 2 picks, but everything after
everything
that,
else,
like,
crap.
Who are these guys?
Yeah.
Unless it's your favorite team.
Unless it's your favorite team. Kind of annoying. Cleveland's got the 1-1. Who do you think they're taking? Because it's not like a clear-cut number 1 guy, right?
No, I think it's either going to be Travis Bazzana from Oregon State. He's the second baseman.
I think that's my guy.
It's either him or Charlie Condon.
Okay.
And Charlie Condon had a lot. I think he had like 38 or 39 home runs for Georgia this season. And set some insane records. It's one of those 2 guys. I mean, again, it's so hard with
flip a coin.
A decade ago, Brady Aiken was the number 1 overall pick in the 2014 MLB draft. He never made it.
Didn't pan. I know.
No.
I know.
Baseball, a lot of injuries for him.
I know. NFL, again, is where my mind goes to, and I'm like, there's a lot of busts, quarterbacks, this and that. Baseball, though, again, is on such a different level, man. You get these young guys who aren't even going to sniff the pros for 4 or 5 years a lot of times, too. And so much can happen in that window. So, a lot of volatility for sure.
So, one last fun stat is since the MLB draft started in 1965, out of all the guys who have gone number 1 overall, obviously some of them are still playing, but all those who have played their entire careers, only 4 of them are Hall of Famers.
Wow.
Harold Baines.
Love
Ken Griffey Jr.
Wow.
Chipper Jones. And I think the last one's obvious to all of us. He's going to be inducted in the next week and a half, Joe Mauer. Wow. So
unbelievable.
As much as Minnesota sports fans have had their gripes about Joe Mauer over the years, we got to take things into perspective, especially as he enters the Hall of Fame here within the next week and a half. He is one of 4 guys to only go 1 of 1 overall. The only one to go 1 overall for his hometown team and still make it into the Hall of Fame.
Dude, that is a phenomenal fun fact. Not just for Minnesota Twins baseball, but for MLB baseball, dude. You got to make sure you tweet that out or retweet it, quote tweet it, whatever, because that is something
the league's already tweeted it out.
Know.
So
okay,
I'm
fair
repeating
enough.
it.
Everybody should know that one because that one is mind-boggling, man. That's insane. Always fun talking with you. We got to get out of here. Twins drop game 1 in the Bay to the G-Men. Game 2 tomorrow. First pitch, 6:15. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers out there always joining us on the stream. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, go check out all of Theo's work on X at Theodore Tollefson, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at Zone Coverage MN, twinsdaily.com. And if it's not too much trouble, go like this video, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So close to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated as well. All right, that'll do it for us. Theo Tollefson. I'm Luke Inman on X at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.